Welcome to Dream Small, where we believe God does big things through the small and everyday faithfulness of His people. I'm Jason.
And I'm Whitney. We're a family of 8 who's fostered, adopted, and stumbled our way through learning that small, everyday choices can change lives.
In a world that tells you to chase big, we dare you to dream small.
Because you know what? It's not about chasing fame. It's about choosing faithfulness. Welcome back to another episode of Dream Small. I am so excited that we get to have Bree back on for another episode. If you didn't catch her first episode, please go back to episode 20. And this is episode 21. And we are bringing her back because there's just still so much of her story that we haven't touched on. And our last episode, was about an hour, and we could have talked for days, honestly. Bree has so much worth sharing. And I think whether you're a foster parent, an adoptive parent, a family who supports foster families, a teacher, a professional that works with children, there is wealth in her story for you. So I'm so excited that she's willing to share some more of her story with us today. And
hi, Bree. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sorry, we're train wrecks. And
Bree, we are so thankful for you, and welcome to the chaos that is our life and our communication style.
No, that's literally me and Corey. He got home yesterday from a 7 or 8 day business trip and was home for 45 minutes. He goes, I'm really glad to spend time with you this evening. I said, I'm so sorry. I'm working at the Impact Center. I won't be back home till like 9 p.m. And I walked out the door and he was like, oh, okay, bye.
Well, that's better than that's better than be like, hey, kids are yours. I'm going to go lay down and stare at the wall because they've worn me out. So better that. That's funny. All right. Well, let's just dig into our questions we have. Let's see. We got a pretty
hold
good.
On. First of all, I want to jump in and ask Bree, how did it feel? Because I know that you said in the first podcast that we did with you in episode 20, you said that this was the first time since you turned 18 that you had a productive platform way to share your story, right? How did that feel, getting to share your story?
It was kind of scary. For anyone listening, I actually messaged Whitney after and I was like, well, hold on, maybe don't tag me on Facebook because my family's going to see it or like listen to it. I think, again, it's not that everything is true, but it involves so many other people because there are 11 of us and then other family members involved. So I just always want to be respectful of them. And so I called a couple of my siblings after and I was like, hey, like, are you okay with this? And they said, don't share my name and stuff. I don't really care. They're like, I mean, it's our life. And I was like, okay. So it just was like kind of nice to have that reassurance that like, yeah, I mean, like, why not talk about it? Like it's, can't erase like a full 18 years of our life that we, might as well embrace it.
That's the thing, right? You can't erase it. And if you don't speak into it, you're kind of just stuck holding it in, right? Like, but if you share it, you use it for the knowledge and benefit of other people as well. I mean, that kind of helps good come from it in a way. So I'm glad that your siblings were okay with that.
Yeah, they were great. And then I mean, also, I feel like when you do talk to other people about it that don't have that perspective or didn't have that life, they do ask questions that maybe I would have never thought of. Or like, I had someone, they go, well, based on what you said, they're like, your mom had the same amount of children as you do at the age that you are now. And they're like, have you ever thought of things from her perspective and what she was going through at that time? And I was like, oh, no, I haven't. And when I sat down and thought about it, I was like, okay, I was like, it doesn't correct things or it doesn't make them okay, but it does give that perspective of, I do think there is an aspect of desperation that led to a lot of the circumstances that we were in. And when you are a mom or, just a parent in general, and you kind of look at some of those different big factor elements that led up to where she was at that point in her life, you're like, okay, like it kind of takes some of the sting out of it because you can at least put some reason behind it.
It gives you the opportunity to have some empathy, and that doesn't take the hurt away, and it doesn't remove everything that happened to you, but being able to kind of put yourself in their shoes a little bit and understand maybe why, I don't know if you'll ever have absolute feelings as to why, an absolute, explanation, but yeah, I see what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense.
So last time we gave a pretty good overview of your story. I don't really think, unless you want more to add that you thought about since last time. Okay, that's a no.
There's always more. There's always more history. It's just where are we going to go from that point? So.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We talked about your first day going into the system. Mm-hmm. First week, really, right? Because you said you went in, he came out, went back in. Well, let's just hop to, as a teenager in the system, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced?
Adjusting to different religious values for the families we were at was a big one. It was very confusing.
What kind of religious values?
So we had one family that was full on do not talk about God in my house. Do not mention it. Do not we weren't allowed to bring up anything. If we wanted to pray before dinner, no, we don't do that. They were very anti. And I never asked them if they were agnostic or atheist or whatever. They just wanted nothing to do with it. And it was weird because we were raised not super Christian, I would say, but there were my mom was always one that pray before dinner, pray before you do this. And so it was just kind of a habit that we were doing. And then we had another, and it was kind of, just more hey, this is what you do before you eat. So just do it. But we also had a family that was Catholic, and for kids, we'd never been to a Catholic church before. So the first time we were kind of wait, what's going on?
I went to a Catholic wedding right when Whitney and I first started dating, and I'd grown up in church and going to a Catholic church. I think that was the first Catholic church I'd ever been in. And it was, even as a young adult, it was whoa, what's going on here? What do you mean I can't take communion? I'm taking communion for 15 years. What do you mean I can't take it? So, yeah.
Yeah. Just very different. And then we had one family and they were apostolic. And
what does that mean?
I think it's from what I understand, I think it's a branch off of Pentecostal maybe.
So kind of charismatic.
The pastor will be talking, and then next thing you know, the drummer is just going nuts and people are running around the church just screaming.
Oh.
And we were just kind of sitting there do we get up and what do we what do we do? But yeah, our foster dad, he was one of the musicians and would just get up and start screaming and yelling and then whoa, and cheering, and we were I don't understand what happened.
Was that one of your good foster families, or was that one of the not so good foster families?
They were really kind. They were good people. That was really confusing to us because we had grown up in more conservative churches where
a Baptist church.
Yeah, you don't even shimmy your shoulders during the worship. You just kind of stand there and sing your hymns. So
no clapping, no hand raising, just stand. No. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Even if they wanted to clap, they couldn't stay on beat. But no, no, the apostolic church, everybody there was so kind. But yeah, the women, they didn't cut their hair. They only wore skirts. They didn't do jewelry. There was no makeup, and so that was very different than how.
And did you have to follow all of those guidelines as well as a foster child in their home?
Only at church. If we went to church, you wear a skirt, but not for school and stuff. They did not.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So their kids followed it. They followed it, but it was not. The only thing that they did that they were really strict on was absolutely no secular music or anything like that in the home, in the car, anything. So, which was, it was fine. It was kind of some of the music we didn't understand why, because we didn't think there's anything wrong with it. Taylor Swift was a big deal back then, and they're absolutely not.
That was a good call.
Yeah. But yeah, so no. Yeah, they were great people. But yeah, some of those religious adjustments were odd just because I don't think we were ever with the families long enough to really learn enough about it. So we were there just long enough to start adjusting and then move somewhere else. And then it was oh, okay. we were at a church where everything is like very organized and very structured, and now there's like screaming, running, super hyped for Jesus, which is great. And then the next one, they were like, if you ever mention Jesus here again, you're out the door. And we were like, okay.
I can't imagine going from a Catholic church to what would you say, apostolic in a charismatic church. Like that would be quite the adjustment.
Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, I would say that. And then just school and friends. A lot of times, even if we did want to do sports and the foster parents were willing to pay for it, there were honestly times that they were like, I could sign you up, but like we were told you're only probably going to be here for a few months. So like you wouldn't even be able to finish out the season. And so they were like, and then the team's short players, or like, and sometimes it really was like, hey, you're just here in a pit stop because they're waiting on a home to open up that has room for 6 or 7 of you instead of just 2.
Okay. That's why you moved around a lot. Just trying to keep your whole family together. Was that the main driver, you think?
They said that it was, and it got to a point where we were just so frustrated that it was like, I'd rather stop moving and just be able to finish my senior year in one place than have my siblings. And there's like a guilt to that, but also we could then be put into a home. Like they would do all that moving with the goal of putting us together just to then have the family be completely overwhelmed and not be able to handle it anyway. So then somebody's leaving anyway.
Right.
And it was usually the oldest.
I'm so glad that you brought up backstepping. I'm so glad that you brought up that religious perspective, because something that we're not naturally inclined to think about as foster parents is the culture shift in every home. Like we have to be really intentional about that. The religion, family rules, what we eat, like it shows up in so many ways that might be completely unique and different to any experience you've ever had, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, everything from just the normal church songs and what you would expect to sing and some of the hymnals and the other stuff, you get familiar with it. And then the next one you go to, that they've got their own set of music or their own, stuff that they have to do during the service, standing up and sitting down over and over again. And you're just like, okay. Like wow. I'm doing my best to figure it out, which I'm glad for the experience now, because I do think that it has allowed me to bridge the gap with other people that do practice other denominations and stuff, to understand a little bit what they're talking about and kind of be a little bit more open-minded with them. So that was, in a way, kind of cool, because I have really enjoyed learning more as I'm older. Because I would think back on some of those memories and be like, okay, but why do they do that? And then I would sit and look it up and be like, okay, like, again, now there's like an explanation for it. But yeah, the culture shift, the religious shift, the school changing. And then, I think I mentioned last time just the different house rules. We would have some that the day we showed up, there was like chore charts already prepped for us. And then we had others that they were like, don't touch anything in my house. Like, but your laundry. And I think that they were doing it in a way of like, hey, we're the parents, so we're going to do the laundry and the dishes and the cooking. But again,
so it wasn't necessary to be mean. It's more like, hey, let us be parents. You don't have to be an adult. Okay. Yeah.
But again, for like me and my sister, we were old enough and we're like, hey, we just met you. We don't want you touching our underclothes. We don't want you allow us to do that. And it was something that was like, no, like we've got it. So again, it was just more of just a trying to merge what we were used to what they were expecting, and having to somehow adjust that over and over and over again.
And like you said last episode, the importance of the new family taking the time to getting to know the foster placement, right? Like, because I would assume that when you take the time to get to know someone, you would understand the reason why you want to do your laundry, right? Like trying to more actively put yourself in their shoes helps you have a better understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think those were probably the main 3 biggest differences. I mean, obviously there's a lot of other things that fall into those categories. I mean, like keeping friendships, finding a job, learning how to drive. There's a bunch of other stuff in there, but I would say if you had to just blanket, those 3 were the biggest. adjustments that we had to go through.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it's hard for teenagers to figure out how they belong and where they belong, let alone having to do it in handfuls of different scenarios like you did. Now that you're
establishing that over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Find yourself defaulting back to that mode when you were a teenager and trying to figure out how to fit in and how to prove yourself to other people now, or do you think you've healed enough now where you don't feel that pressure?
I think over the last 2 to 3 years, I've really improved on kind of separating from that. Before, it was something that if I felt somebody was judging me, or I felt that somebody wasn't being open, or it instantly went into anger and kind of like a confrontational, aggressive, I was very much that type of person that if you looked at me the wrong way, it was like, what's your problem? Like, if you want to say something, just say it. And I would cause a scene right there. And I think that it came from just that insecurity of like, I'm constantly the new person. I'm constantly having to go through and explain, like over and over and over and over again, being the new kid. Yeah. And then having them go like, oh, can we come to your house? No, you can't, because I don't live with my parents. And then there's the whole, the stigma.
That's a whole new thing to explain.
Well, yeah. And I think that a lot of people don't understand. There's always the stereotypes that adults have. There are also stereotypes that teenagers have against other teenagers. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't just like the judgment of, oh, this manager at Arby's doesn't want to hire me because I'm troubled and she doesn't want to deal with, troubled kids on her shift. But also going to school, and when people like, I'm in foster care, and they're like, oh, your parents are real messed up then. And it's like, okay.
Thanks.
I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah. So, right. Like, what do you say to that?
Well, yeah. And it's hard. Or sometimes they'll be like, well, what did you do? And it's like, well, I guess sometimes there are kids that have behavior things, but again, I think that's a big stereotype, is that there has to be something wrong with the child for them to be in foster care. And it's like those two, they're not dependent on each other, know?
Right.
So I think, again, there's just not enough, like, awareness. I don't know. There's not like an engagement enough with kids and families from those communities to really just get a deep understanding of all the different nuances that come with foster care.
Yeah. So
people are scared of the unknown. They don't, they're timid to interact with the unknown. And, unless you've been immersed in foster care, it can be scary for somebody on the outside looking in, trying to figure out what to do, what not to do, and all that other stuff. So it can be very isolating. I know it can feel isolating for us. I cannot imagine what it would be like for a kiddo in foster care, a teenager, how isolating it would feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do something positive. Let's go positive here. So we asked, as we were prepping for this, were there any foster parents, mentors, adults who made a positive impact on you during that time, and how did they help? What did they do? Tell us their story.
Yes. So I would like to tell you.
I love that you just started smiling as soon as I asked that question. That makes my heart happy.
The minute I saw that question, I started tearing up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad they asked that.
Oh, good.
Don Putty. He is the best person I think I've probably ever met in my life. I know that's a big statement, but I mean it with my whole heart. He worked at Toyota Manufacturing in Georgetown, Kentucky, and his wife, Tish, was the superintendent for the school district that we were moved to right after we were in kinship care. And I had mentioned that we were not allowed to take anything but a Walmart bag of clothing. Yep. We had no furniture. We had nothing. And Dawn somehow made a connection with my grandmother and organized an entire house full of furniture, clothing, pots, pans, dishes. I mean, like, he went to a big church. I mean, I guess you would maybe compare it to like Emmanuel up here with all the different campuses, but it's called Southland. It's based out of Lexington, but he went there and he just, every person that he knew, he called them, hey, they need beds, they need mattresses, they need clothing, they need shoes. And when we left Nicholasville, we were moving to Georgetown, and we showed up and they had all of the stuff ready, and the entire school football team showed up and moved all of the furniture into the house and got it set up for us.
Wow.
It did not stop there. For the next 4 years, this man stayed in contact every single birthday, every Christmas, every holiday. If he came over and saw that my shoes had holes in them, hey, what size shoe do you wear? Oh, I'm an 8. He'd come up the next day with a pair of shoes.
Wow.
And he did that. He did that for all 9 of my siblings. He provided emotional support, not only for us, but for my grand, because she was overwhelmed. And he would sit and just pray with her and go, hey, I know that you are stressed out, but these are children. And he was really that devil's advocate on both sides. He would take me and go, hey, your grand's having some behavioral issues out of you, and you need to understand where you're in the wrong. And so he gave that accountability. But the biggest thing was just he was so consistent. He showed up. And if he said, I'm going to be there, he was there. And even after we moved all those different places, I still heard from him. He still checked in. When I walked the stage at graduation, he was standing at the bottom of the stage with a bouquet of flowers.
Oh my goodness.
He showed up on my wedding day, and so he got nothing out of it.
Yeah.
He got absolutely nothing out of it. I don't even know where he came from.
I was going to say, where did he did he go to church with your grand?
No.
She had found out about you from his wife.
I don't even know if it was that. I honest to goodness have no clue how the connection was ever made. He just showed up one day and he never left. Yep. He retired from Toyota. His wife retired. They moved on to Florida. But he even just a couple of days ago, I posted some pictures of my babies, and he said, well, if you get them the plane ticket, I'll keep them for a few days to take them off your hands. You have a beautiful family. I'm so proud of you. And when I graduated college, he sent me something and, made sure to reach out. And I'm so proud of you for actually doing that. He told me on my wedding day, he gave me a hug and he goes, I'm happy for you. And I hope this is a good choice for you, but you still need to go to college.
Right. Because you said you and Corey got married real young, right? Right at 18. Yeah. You said you were trauma bonded. Is that the phrase you used in the last episode? I think you used.
It had to have been something like that, because we met and just I met him, and a month later he was deployed to Africa for 13 months. And we were just pen pals. So we didn't even really see each other face to face. We were literally just pen pals with a 13-hour time difference, just talking to each other while he was experiencing deployment and all the stuff that went with that as a young adult. And then me going through foster care, and just kind of bore an encouragement to each other and talked about life and our goals and what we wanted. And we were kind of that soundboard for each other. And then he said one day, when I come home, I think I'm going to marry you. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, I'm being serious. And then he came home, and 2 months later we got married.
Wow.
Man knows what he wants. Well done.
So yeah, but again, we've laughed now, because we were at the time, it was really a struggle, but it was because we didn't know each other. We didn't know how to budget. We didn't know how to live as adults, but especially with each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was somebody that, because of my past, the minute that there's a hardship, the minute that I feel like you're not treating me the way I should be treated, I have the matches ready and I'm burning the bridge.
Yeah.
And that behavior carried on for a really long time. So it was really hard. And especially watching my mom have so many kids with so many different people, marriage was not something that was instilled in us as being important.
Mm-hmm.
It was just hey, it's convenient. So, makes your taxes a little bit quicker. I mean, we did not have any value put on us about keeping those relationships. And again, I think with Don, he was the first ever really strong. He was firm in his faith. He was firm in his feedback, but it came from a place of love. And he would tell me straight to my face, you are doing this and it is not okay. And I don't want to see you continue to hurt yourself or others. And this is why. And he would sit and he'd pray. And so I told him one day, I said, Don, you're the first man that ever spoke to me in a way that was correcting, but did not make me feel scared.
Yeah.
Even in my adult life, if I had managers that I worked with and they would raise their voice at me, I would just start sobbing, because I didn't know how to process that emotion, because it had always come back to, oh, they're yelling, somebody's going to get hit or something bad's going to happen. And so I just had never taken the time to process that. And I told him, I said, you are the first one that would sit. He would make me articulate, what are you feeling? And I'd say, I don't know. He'd go, nope, that's not a good answer. Tell me what you're feeling. And I'm like, okay, well, I feel upset. I feel disappointed. He would go, okay, why? So he started to teach me how to actually pull that out and then go, okay, now is this logical, or maybe are we making something into a bigger deal, And so I think that was, and he did that for my siblings, and they were much younger when he did it for them. So they got the lesson a little bit quicker because they weren't so set in their ways and stubborn.
Sure. Yep.
But yeah, he's phenomenal. So yeah, I would say out of the whole experience, he was the most consistent. And then of course there was other like school teachers sprinkled throughout that. Once they learned that we were in foster care, they would just go and like check in,
Yeah. So. It sounds like Dawn stepped into a fatherly figure role and was that person for you. And that is amazing. And I just wish there were more Dawns around, because so many.
Can you imagine if so many more Dawns were around the world and how much better it would be?
That's the thing. Like so many children, specifically in the foster care system, don't have a dad. There's no dad around. There's no father figure. We need more Dawns. So that is an incredible testimony. And wow, I'm so glad you got to have him in your life.
Just curious, does Dawn and Tish, do they have any of their own biological children?
Yeah. So they have. Yeah.
Because I was going to think he was an angel. Just kind of came in and saved the day and then kind of disappeared. I think those are real. So I was like, maybe he's an angel. Who knows? He's
got 3 sons and then a whole slew of grandkids. And I mean, awesome. They've got a big old family.
I would love to know, I bet you do too, how the heck he got connected to you guys. Or maybe he just knew there was a need and he's like, hey, okay, I can do this. So which is even more incredible. I
might contact him after this and ask him, because I had never really, again, because I've known him since I was like 14.
Yeah.
Sure.
I just never, it wasn't a question at the time that I thought was important. It was, everything was changing. So I was like, okay, there's somebody showing up at the door, like added to the list of caseworkers and all these. Right. So I never really thought to ask, but yeah, I might ask him that, because I've never looked into it.
Does he happen to do any sort of like mentoring now of younger people at all, or is that something he just kind of did for you? I mean, granted, for you guys is 9 different kids, so it's a lot, but that's just, it's so cool to hear a story of somebody just stepping in where somebody was needed and just doing incredible with it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, him and Tish are just enjoying being grandparents and getting to experience that. He worked in a car factory for over 30 years. So the minute they got to go and relax on the beach,
yeah. That's understandable. Wow, that's incredible.
Well, if Dawn listens to this, I want to say thanks to Dawn, because that is incredible. We need more Dawns.
Yeah. Well, and thank you to Tish also, because your partner has to be willing to go along 100%. With that too. There was a lot of money. There was a lot of time. I remember times that he would show up at 10 o'clock at night because it had been a really rough day, and my grand would call him and go, if you don't come over and help with this, I can't keep these kids. And he'd show up 10 o'clock at night and he'd go, okay, what is happening? Let's figure this out. And he'd sit and come up with a solution. And so Tish had to be very patient and calm and understanding that, hey, I'm going over to this woman's house and she's a single woman who's the same age as us. And I'm going to offer emotional support. That takes a very strong marriage and a very strong level of trust to just be willing to just let him kind of lead that. Yeah. So she's a very, very, very strong woman. I've always looked up to her.
I think we've talked about care communities before, and if not, we will soon anyway on a podcast. But, the whole concept of a care community is to help families foster longer. So families can keep saying yes when they know they have support, right? And it sounds like in the case of your gran, Dawn essentially stepped into every single role that a care community provides and completely wrapped himself and Tish also around your family to support you and help you stay with her, right? Because when you ended up leaving her home, it wasn't her decision at that point, from what you shared last time. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
amazing.
he really did. And yeah, no, it wasn't her choice. It was just kind of abrupt, but, yeah, I think it was at that point in time, it was a needed separation even from her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he even just that transition helped to kind of ease things because he made the effort to go, okay, they're in foster care. Let me figure out what organization they're with. Let me find out who the foster parents are and if they're willing to open that contact so I can bring them birthday presents or whatever. And so he definitely went in and kind of took that extra step because a lot of parents want, or, people that aren't family, once we were taken into foster care, could have very easily said, all right, well, that's done, And
he could have just stepped out and been like, cool, my time's up. Like, I did what you told me to, God. Like, clearly this is done. But he stayed the course, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we should do this. Maybe I am. To talk to Don and have him on to talk about stepping into a gap that exists and serving people the way he did. Because
that would be so cool.
It would be so neat for because so many people ask us, how can we help?
Mm-hmm.
So having a dude like that can change the world.
Yeah.
I don't think that's hyperbolic either. I mean, that's incredible what he did.
Yeah, 100%. Not just spiritually, emotionally, and just physically, he made such a big impact on our lives. And he's just one person. He would say all the time, I'm just here. Like, I just got off work and I stopped by and I dropped off, 2 bags of food. Here you go. But that was dinner. So he was really great. And I think that sometimes you guys say it all the time. I see you post and you'll say, it doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the smallest thing, like you guys, I think somebody dropped off toilet paper and paper towels.
Yeah.
And it made a big difference because that's something that you always need. And it's
was it you? Was it you? We still don't know who.
Were you the toilet paper?
Were you the toilet paper person? Okay.
It was
paper
me.
Fairy.
But the thing of it was, though, I saw that and I was like, I just don't. It's weird because even growing up in foster care, I don't always think of stuff like that. And I'm like, I was at Sam's Club. I could have I bought that same pack of toilet paper for my kids and I could have got a second and dropped it off. But you just don't think of stuff like that as being helpful. But it's like, if you need it for your house, they need it for theirs.
Okay.
Right.
That's why we kind of. That's why we're.
That's why we're trying
to be. That's why we're trying to be vocal about it, just to let people know, like, hey, this is a big deal. This is really helpful. Like, you might not think about it, but 100%. Like, that was one of the. Like, I shared on whatever podcast we talked about. I think it would have been 19, maybe the one before we interviewed you, maybe the one even before that. Just how cool that was. Somebody didn't ask us what we needed. They just went, got us toilet paper, paper towels, dropped them off, boom, and we had them. Yeah, just awesome.
Yeah. I think I have 2 more questions for you. I know we should probably start wrapping up, but
why?
I have 2
we got
questions,
all kinds of time
and
still.
I can't pick which is better, so we're gonna go with both. You talked about Don and him being there throughout, right? But can you share what it was like to age out of this system for you emotionally, on a practical level? Like, I know you got married pretty soon after aging out, so that is even more unique, but what was that like? Like, were you just kicked to the curb at that point? Like, where did you live? What did you do?
So my foster parents actually, a couple of days before I turned 18, said, hey, like, go ahead and start moving your stuff out, but you don't have to, like, don't take everything. And I was like, okay, I'm like, because we don't want to be like lie and say you moved out. So if you leave like a bag, like, oh no, like, yeah, she still got stuff here, like, so you're not technically gone all the way. But they had asked me if I wanted to stay in the house. And they said, you can actually live here all the way until you graduate high school, because you're still a dependent until you graduate high school, even if you're 18. They said, we can get paid for you. And I said, no. I said, I'm not going to, you guys. And I told them straight up, I was really mad. And I said, you guys do absolutely nothing to help me. You do absolutely nothing to like make me feel part of the family. It's like, why would I stay here and give you guys $1,000 a month?
I was going to say, so they literally said, you can stay here because we can still get paid for you. It wasn't because you're still in school. It wasn't because you don't have anywhere to go. it wasn't because we want to help you and we love you. It was because we're getting money for you. You can still stay here.
And
Ew.
they did not even ask where I was going. That was the thing. And it still to this day is like, I've thought back on that. And I'm like, when we had that conversation, they never even asked where I was going. I had my bag. I left a pillow and a blanket on the bed. So I didn't technically take everything like they asked. And I walked out, got into a car and drove off. And they never once asked where I went to.
Do you think that they continued to claim you there because you left stuff?
No, I know they didn't actually, because they did until my actual birthday, but the case manager showed up on my birthday to meet with me. And when I wasn't there, the foster parents were kind of caught off guard. It wasn't like a planned visit. And they said, oh, yeah, she grabbed her stuff and just took off. And
oh, man.
Luckily, I had a phone that I would use on like Wi-Fi. I didn't have like a service plan, but I would connect to the school Wi-Fi or the home Wi-Fi. And I had texted them. And I had messages where they said, hey, if you don't come and get your stuff, by your birthday, we're just going to give the blankets away. And so I showed the case manager, like, I didn't leave. Like, they knew I was gone. They texted me about coming to get the rest of my stuff. Like, they've known for several days. So thank goodness. But if I hadn't had those few messages, then it would have been my word against their word that I just took off. And they filed me as a runaway. And I was like, I didn't run away. Like, I'm still showing up to school every day. Like,
right. I moved like, you're still here.
Yeah, I moved into my friend Mercedes' basement, and she's driving me to school every day.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
But yeah, they wanted me to stay there.
That's so hard for me to like grasp mentally and just emotionally. That is so hard for me to understand. Even if I couldn't stand the sight of a kid, I wouldn't do that to a kid. That just hurts my heart to know people would do that.
You want to believe people have hearts and they foster for the right reasons, but how can you in good conscience say that you're fostering for the right reasons if that's how you treat another human, right? Like, that's just wrong and it feels dirty.
Just curious about your experience in the different homes. Did you notice any type of correlation between the homes that were Christian homes, like not just by word but also by deed, and how they treated you versus the opposite at all, or did it not really matter?
It's really hard because the family that I lived with that didn't allow any talk about Jesus in their home, they were on top of things. Like, they took us to the doctor and they made sure that, like, hey, I'll drive you to work. I'll make sure, like, I don't want you walking in the rain. And there were others that they did force us to go to church every Sunday, but they weren't like that. And I don't want to say that any of them were mistreating, but they just weren't treating us like family.
Yeah.
And so it's hard because, and I don't know if it's a religious reasoning behind it, but it was that I really struggled with my faith because some of the people that said they were the biggest believers that were in our lives did not act like it. And then people that you couldn't even say the name of Jesus in front of them, or they're getting upset.
And they treated you great.
They were fine. And they didn't do anything above and beyond. It was just common basic courtesy of, hey, I wouldn't even make my dog be outside in this weather, so I'll give you a ride to work. But other families didn't do that. It was like, hey, grab an umbrella or a poncho and get the heck out the door. Like, you need to go to work. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So, but yeah, that.
Did you ever go back to those houses and put dog poop in a paper bag and throw it on their porch and light it on fire?
No, luckily they lived too far apart from each other, and I didn't have a car.
I would totally have done that.
Jason's like, tell me now their addresses, and I'll go now.
The thing that's funny is I actually have a sibling that lives in Berea, and they live in the same neighborhood of one of our worst homes. And he was like, It's so weird because I lived there when I was in first grade, but I still walk past that house. Like, if I'm out walking my dog and be like, ugh. He's like, I don't even know if they still even live in that house, but every time I see that house, I'm just like, ugh, gross. Like, just not good memories.
Right. Wow.
Whitney, you said you had a second question.
I do. So that transition, when you aged out, are there any kinds of supports that would have made it easier for you? financial support, emotional support, educational support, housing? What could have helped you?
I think if they had, especially for kids that are I think it's important for any teenager, but especially kids in foster care, when you know that they don't have a strong foundation to go back to, teach them financial literacy. Like, teach us how to budget money, teach us how, hey, I didn't understand when I logged into my bank account what the actual balance was versus the pending balance, like the available versus the.
Whitney still doesn't know that. Just kidding.
He's not wrong.
I'm kidding.
But I would overdraft my bank account all the time because I would just quickly glance and, my check dropped in. I still got $600. Oh, well, no, my phone came out. My car insurance came out, whatever. And I actually only had $200.
Sure. Yeah.
But I had no clue. And after the third or fourth time of having to borrow money from our in-laws, my father-in-law was like, what in the heck are you guys doing? And we were like, we don't know.
We're just rolling with it and figuring it out.
Obviously spending too much money. Right. But yeah, so just.
That's awesome. You guys are willing to say, we don't know. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Corey came home and his parents are very traditional Baptist, like Southern Baptist. And so in some of those communities, you don't really talk about mental health. You don't talk about finances. It's very like closed. So Corey did not also really have a lot of knowledge about budgeting and stuff. And he came home from deployment with $23,000 in the account and it was gone in 3 months.
Yep.
Oh,
it's
wow.
easy to do. Yeah.
Because we didn't have furniture. Oh, well, we need a car. Oh, well, we need.
Yep. Yeah.
It doesn't go far when you need big stuff.
Oh, me and Bree are getting married, so she needs a dress and we need rings and then she came out of foster care and she has no clothing. Let me go she deserves to have nice clothing. Well, then next, we're trying to buy a Snickers at the gas station and we don't have $1 in the bank. But yeah, so that would have been helpful. And then I think just having somebody dedicated to, whether it's a case manager or some other type of advocate that just sits with you and really goes through the available options through the state for housing and what that looks like. And it's not just a quick rush 30-minute house check-in where they're just checking you off a list that they made contact, but they're actually sitting and they're asking, what are your goals? What do you want to do for college? And just have it I don't know, just treat them like they have all the potential in the world. And then once you look at their school records or once you look at their, money and stuff, their scholarships, whatever they might have, then kind of narrow that down and make it more realistic as you would for your own kid.
So it's almost like children aging out of the system need a guidance counselor or a life coach or some kind of advocate to help them navigate all of this if the foster family is not willing to.
When somebody transitions out of the military, they have to go through what's called out processing, where you have some meetings with people like, here's what's available to you, here's what you should do. And it sounds like, something similar needs to be developed for foster kiddos who would be aging out and becoming adults without, a parent. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, 100%. And then just I apparently had health insurance for years. I had Medicaid through foster care until I was 26. I never knew I had that because no one sat and had the conversation with me. So I was paying for employer insurance when I already had Medicaid that would have been free until I was 26 years old, but nobody sat and had the conversations. So I didn't know that. And then with Medicaid, so many more mental health options would have been available because it covers more and more people will accept that than just $15 out of my paycheck comes to cover some bare necessities for health insurance. And it's not very effective, but just all of that. Mental health was a big one because I think a lot of kids, when they're aging out, the natural instinct, depending on what their situation was, is to reach out to the biological parents or whoever that last connection was. And whether you loved your parents or not, you were put in foster care for a reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the age that you were put in, maybe you have no clue what that reason was.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, like, it's a can of worms. You don't know what you're getting in. So having established mental health care would really help with that. And even when we were in foster care, I wish there was more opportunities for us to do counseling sessions with our mom. Like, let us sit with her face to face. They say that the goal is reunification, and they have all the meetings and the kids have all the meetings. Let's put some of those together.
That's a great idea.
Especially for older kids like my age. I was so old when I went into foster care that I saw so many things firsthand, and I remembered them, and I had questions about them.
Yeah.
And there was never an avenue to actually ask anybody. And if you bring that up to somebody for mental health, they're like, oh, well, I don't know. I really wasn't there for that. But, you know, and then they're just trying to guess based off what you say. So I think that that would have been really great, because it would have probably helped our relationship with my siblings stay a lot closer, but it also would have maybe helped ease some of those tough conversations going into adulthood, to have a third party there just to kind of mediate and just to kind of keep the peace and keep the conversation flowing in a positive way.
Yeah. Gosh, I still could like go on and on for like 5 more episodes with you. I'm glad we're going to be having you back on. Okay. So Jason, do you have anything else before I have my last question?
Yeah, one more question from me. You're talking to, you know, some people who listen to this will obviously be some foster parents.
If you ask my question.
I don't know if I'm asking your question. I'm looking at the questions we developed. By we, I mean
mine's
me.
not on there. Okay.
Okay. What would you want parents of teen foster kids to know, or of foster kids in general? Like, I know there's probably a long list of things that you would want to say. Pick whatever it is you want to talk about.
Something that my siblings experienced that was really hard for them was, and it was hard for the adoptive parents. So a couple of my siblings were adopted by a parent set. And it seemed like those parents kind of thought that once they were adopted, that the trauma went away.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed kind of like, oh, well, we're not the ones that did that to you, and we've never done that to you in this home, so why are you still acting like that? You know, why are we still doing that? Or, hey, I know that you live in our home now, and you call us mom and dad. That was my biggest pet peeve. I'm 15, 16, 17 years old. Do not force me to call you mom and dad. Like, yeah. Let that be a natural thing. If you want me to call you, you know, Miss Whitney or Mr. Jason or whatever you want to call, if you don't want to just be called by your first name, tell me what to call you, but let it be something that's a compromise that everyone's comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that was really hard, because a lot of kids, when they're very young, they have that strong, innocent attachment to mom and dad. And when you take that title and you move it, if they willingly start calling you that, because some of my siblings did, first day, they'd be like, hey, mom.
Yeah.
And that was perfectly fine. But we had several families that really forced it. And it would cause behavioral issues and fights, because they're like, I don't want to do that.
That's confusing, and that's weird.
Some of your foster parents need to come up here and attend some of the training we've been through. Because some of the things you have described your foster parents doing are things I explicitly remember being taught in our training, like before we were licensed. Don't do this, and some of them did the exact thing we were told not to do. It's wild.
Well, I'm curious. I was going to ask you guys this. Have you done foster care through the actual state DCS, or has it always been through like a private kind of like company?
We've done both.
Okay.
We started off with a private agency. Then once we got sick of so many people in the house, we went just to DCS. Once we kind of knew what we were doing and felt comfortable riding solo. And then recently we switched to a Christian licensing agency for help. And candidly, we wanted to vet an agency. So if we recruit people to become foster parents, we can refer them to a good organization. So we wanted to kind of vet them to make sure we weren't sending people to somewhere crazy. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we were always just strictly through the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered if there's kind of a difference, because I've met some other foster parents that were like, we would never do that. Like, why would anyone do that? But so a lot of them were through some private organizations that did additional training and offered more resources.
You have to have most agencies require additional hours of training on top of the DCS minimum. And I would be willing to bet the training you would get through an agency was probably better than what you would get through DCS.
Yeah. I know that my foster parents would always, someone's going to come sit with you today. We have to go do our required 20 hours or whatever it is, and some of them were online and they would just sit there and click. They wouldn't even watch them. And then, because it's the same stuff every year.
Yeah.
I mean, bloodborne pathogens, we might do that.
Yeah. Well, some of
the training is very good. Some of it is very not. So,
absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I think that just some of these kids have trauma. And I have a brother, and I spoke to him about maybe bringing this up, but he had the biggest fights about water. He would not go, he would take showers only, but he was young. And so they were like, no, you're just going to get in the bath. We're not going to waste all the water. Get in the bath with your brother. Let me wash you. And they would pour water over his head. And he would, he would claw and scratch. Like, he would draw blood on some of our foster parents. And I was not in a home with them, but I went for a visit one time, and they were talking. They're like, if we could just get this water thing under control. I'm tired of it. Like, he's about to leave the house because he's a danger to people. And they were going to put him in a facility for harming himself and others because of this behavior with water. And I just remember kind of like, oh, that must not be in the file. And I just looked and I said, oh, you can't put him underwater or dump water over his head. Our stepdad used to drown him in a bathtub to try to teach him that it's just water. It's, you go under, you cough it back up, everything's fine. And he would literally hold him under water at 3 years old.
Oh.
And then have him start choking. And then when he started taking the water and have him cough back up and go, did you die? Are you okay?
Oh my gosh.
But these foster parents didn't know.
No idea.
They had no clue. And I'm like, he at the age of 7 or 8 years old was being looked at to be put into a facility and medicated because something was overlooked and when it was put in the file.
And that's not
but
a
it's
small
wild
thing.
that they didn't ask. Like,
they had their intake questions. There were things in our foster care file when I got a copy of it after several years because, and I'll go ahead and I'll just say this, my in-laws had some of my younger siblings as foster children after I was an adult. So they've done foster care for 20 years. And I was like, I'm going to try to adopt some of my younger siblings. I couldn't, because in the state of Kentucky, maybe every state, I don't know, but you can't adopt children until you're 21 or older. And then you meet financial requirements, and you have to kind of go through all these hoops. And Corey and I had no clue what we were doing with money. We couldn't even keep ourselves afloat. So they were like, hey, you can't do that. So my in-laws had met my siblings a couple of different times at our wedding and other stuff. And they took some of my siblings, and they made a comment several years after I'd aged out about how, well, the reason we couldn't let you guys be around each other is because you guys acted like little freaks all the time. I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we're not going to let you change in the bedroom together when you guys are incest and doing nasty stuff. And I said, I'm so sorry.
What?
It was put in our folder by a contact of my grandmother's that she suspected that due to sexual abuse that we had these provocative behaviors and would basically kind of experiment with each other.
Wow.
Sexually abused by other adults. And, it said in the folder, to no fault of their own, the children expressed themselves in a sexual nature. And, and I remember I said, that's in my case folder. And they said, yeah, they said it's in for all of theirs. And they went and got it and handed it. And a bunch of stuff about me and my siblings and everybody was in there in the history section. And I was like, that is not true. Like, yes, there was sexual abuse from some of our stepdads and stuff, but there was never thing like that. And so it was on there, the person that reported that information that was interviewed by DCS she was just a random neighbor that sometimes babysat for my grand for like an hour when she went to the grocery store.
Oh, wow.
And they put it in your file? What?
It was in our file.
Maybe it's Kentucky that's broke. I don't know. Good gravy.
I will say that my in-laws have said that the system, they live in Franklin now, and they said that the foster care system in Indiana and the foster care system in Kentucky are absolutely not the same, period. Like they said it's night and day. So again,
Indiana has faults, right? Any of them have faults. Any system is going to have faults, but I feel like overall arching Indiana does a decent job, right? Like there's always going to be examples of where they don't do it, but that's anything.
Yeah. Well, and even just in my job, I'm a case manager, but not for foster care. But when I get a case file, the first thing I do is call that family and go, hey, this is kind of the blurb that we have for your history. Is this up to date? Is this accurate? Are these the goals you're working on? You know, what services do you need? What's going to be helpful? And that wasn't something that was done. But I got that section of the case file during a period of time when I was talking with my mom, and I was like, have you ever in your life heard this? And she was like, no, I didn't even know that was something. Where did you see that? And I sent her a picture of it. And she was like, no, I was your mom, and I was still going through the court process trying to get you back at that time, and I've never seen that. And so she even herself did not know. And so again, it's one of those, I think that there needs to be more conversations just all around with the foster kids.
Yes. Yes.
And it's so tricky. Like your brother's experience took me back. We had a foster boy here several years ago, and he had trouble with showering. Same thing. Mm-hmm. And I reached out to his therapist and the caseworker, and I asked about it because I was like, something's not adding up here. Like, he won't shower. Like, he would get in the bathroom, we'd turn the water on, he would never get in, and he would stink. And he was older, so I couldn't really go in. So I was like, Jason, you have to go in and like make sure you're bathing him. But it was just, something was really off about it. And at some point they did tell me that in the file there was alleged. They never, knew if it was true or not. They weren't sure if it was just dramatized, but similar situation. Yeah. But what's wild is, and I don't know how to fix it, but there is patient confidentiality with therapists because I would try to talk to his therapist about things, and I could essentially share everything I wanted to with the therapist, but in hopes of gaining understanding and his history so we could understand his trauma and better serve him and love him and honor his needs. And we were left scrapping, like we wouldn't get much, right? Like it was the hardest thing because it's like, what on earth are we supposed to do here?
I don't think we've seen any of our foster kiddos case files ever, have we?
No.
Not okay. So I've never seen one.
Nothing.
Really?
Nothing.
We can get when you adopt
it, you can get it, but it's all redacted. So even then, like it's very minimal information.
That must be a Kentucky thing then, because my in-laws to this day still have my 4 siblings' case files just sitting in their closet. Like
I'm sure if we tried and pushed, we would get it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got Leah's, but it's all redacted.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And it had, because the history, there was so much overlap between me and my siblings. There's full sections on there just about like literally all 9 of us where there's crossover between stuff that interacted with that specific sibling that they had.
Yeah.
And I think if the mental health aspect of it was more heavily pushed, do some therapy sessions. If that kid's in therapy, include maybe the foster parent in one of those sessions. Right. If it's a relationship that's been going on long enough so that the foster parent in that session could then maybe ask, hey, we've been really seeing some issues with the showering or the water. And then it's already in that the child's already there. So at that point, the therapist can then share, because once you're already in the room in the session, it's more lax for them to talk about things.
True.
And allow that to happen. But you're right, there's such a gap between the confidentiality aspect and the, hey, how in the world are we supposed to help them cope and move on if it's just going on a piece of paper and sitting there to die?
It's tricky.
And also I think it's fairly new, the trauma-informed parenting stuff with the training we've been through. Like it's a thing now, and I don't think it was 10 years ago. The way me and Whitney were raised is do it or you get spanked. Yeah. That was the parenting technique, and now it's much more involved. hey, they have stuff. You need to balance your parenting style with the trauma they've had, right? When it's fair. All right, what's your last question? And we'll wrap up.
Wow. Okay. So
we can talk forever. It's already been an hour and 10 minutes.
Right?
Yeah,
is there like a Guinness Book of World Record max on the longest podcast ever?
It's like 8 or 10, 12 hours. It's long.
Okay. Yeah. We don't have time for that.
It's long. Yeah.
We'd start having babies in here and everything.
Right? That'll get real interesting. So, okay. If there was one thing you could change about the foster care system, what would it be?
I think I'm going to double down, and I'm going to say that the structure for the mental health and how the visitations are done and different stuff like that. I don't think that children, especially teenagers, should be forced to sit through an hour-long visitation with a parent that they don't want to see, but then get no mental health help.
No, that's crazy. I agree with you. Yeah.
If the kid doesn't want to be there, and if at a certain point that reunification, it should be a goal for a while, but at some point, let's be realistic. The parents on their third round of trying to do this, let's not keep forcing that, because you're just reopening those wounds.
Yeah.
And I see it now with the foster kids that my in-laws currently have. They've been told 3 different times, we're going to court because your mom finished her program and is going to get you back. And then something happens. And for the past 3 years, it has not happened. They've had these same boys for 4 years now.
Wow.
And they're finally just going to adopt them, because they were like, let's be realistic. The mom is not to do this. Right. But they keep getting the kids worked up and excited because that is mom. And then the foster parents have to deal with the fallout.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We're living that. It is so hard, because a system that is put in place to protect children and foresee their well-being and their safety does not, as a whole, put the child first.
No.
And that's exactly what you're saying too. Like, the services and supports needed for these children to process this emotional whiplash isn't there, right? Like, parents getting 3 years to get their act together and never doing it at the sake of the child. It's not fair to the child. So,
and how do you expect children with that much trauma and emotional baggage and absolutely zero coping skills? How do you expect them to go and be able to commit to anything, to be a functioning, productive adult? How do you instill in them that, hey, deadlines mean things, and if you say you're going to do something, it needs to be done, because they're shown over and over and over, well, you said this was going to happen, and here I am. I was going to be with my siblings, or my mom was going to get me back. How many times?
Yeah.
And there's no coping skills. There's no nothing provided. It's just oops, I'm so sorry. Like, we really thought this time was going to work. And then when they turn 18, you expect them to be able to hold a job and commit to college and have healthy relationships where they are able to not only articulate, but they're able to set that stuff aside. And when they have those emotional triggers built up, to have an appropriate adult response when they've never been taught to do that.
And therein lies the generational cycle, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't learn. They're not taught anything different.
Yeah. And that's what I said last time. I told my siblings, I said, deal with it now, because it's not cute to have outbursts and be crying and sobbing at your job because somebody, you can't handle what's happening at some point. Like, that's not acceptable. And it happens way sooner than you think it does.
You're so right. I appreciate you so much. Your wisdom is so wonderful. Like, I love getting to talk to you and hear your perspective on things. So thank you.
I didn't realize you were so much younger than us last week when you said you were almost 30. I was like, oh man, she's way smarter than I am.
You're old, Jason. You're just old.
I know.
You guys don't mid-40s.
Say again. Say it louder. What would you say?
You don't seem that old. Yeah, Jason, you guys both seem so much younger. No,
well,
I just.
We knew we loved you, Bree. We knew we loved you.
That's why it's the compliments.
If you asked my children, they would tell you I'm 27 because I'm forever 27. So, and then Benny would be up like, but not really.
Which is weird because 27 was before she met me. So I don't know if I should be offended by that or not. So
no.
I don't know.
You guys can edit this. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on again. And it's been great. I appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah,
I'm excited to keep the dialogue going with you, Bree. I really, truly enjoy your perspective.
Yeah, your willingness to share your perspective. I don't think you truly understand how valuable it is for others who haven't lived it to understand that side of it, how hard it is, and the different unique challenges and what to look for as foster parents. So yes, thank you very, very much. We're absolutely going to keep this dialogue going and having you on for different topics and whatever.
Yeah, that'd be great anytime. So
thank you, Bree. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode. And until next time, keep dreaming small.
Thanks for listening to the Dream Small podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please tap the follow button and leave us a review. It helps other people find my mom and dad's show. If you're on Spotify, please give my parents a follow and a 5-star rating. And wherever you listen, don't forget to share the show with a friend who needs a little encouragement today. You can also follow us on social media to stay in the loop. Instagram at Dream Small Podcast, Facebook Dream Small Podcast, and Twitter X at Dream Small Show. Or email us anytime at dreamsmallpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. And remember, just dream small. See you next time.